This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carannante.
Welcome to the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carannante. The news cycle keeps on churning. We did a whole podcast last Thursday. It was mostly focused on, hey, good for us, about how, hey, if the Yankees are still looking for rotation upgrades, MacKenzie Gore is not the guy. Don't overload your rotation with lefties. Don't pay the heavy price. And then we signed off and we pressed click, which is what the sound is that a button makes. And then, the Nationals traded MacKenzie Gore to the Texas Rangers. I had those opinions on the last show because I honestly thought MacKenzie Gore wasn't going anywhere, or at least we had a couple weeks to think about it. That really shut down that cycle. 5-for-1 deal. No, the Yankees should not have done that. Yes, it's another clear example of a Yankees tax, or rather a front office just knowing exactly what it wanted. Gavin Feen, not in anybody's top 100 prospects, was the headliner, but the front office in Washington is the same front office from Boston last year that almost drafted Feen, and then the Rangers stepped in front of them. And hey, if you want Gavin Feen, what am I supposed to do about that? The Yankees don't have him. Either way, it's not like MacKenzie Gore was a dream target for the Yankees. He looked a lot like the guys already in the rotation, but less consistent than Carlos Rodon. You could see the ceiling, but you could also see the similarity. We don't have to think about it anymore. He's not a Yankee, but where do they go from here? They still trying to trade for a starting pitcher? Or is it Ryan Weathers? Felt like it was Ryan Weathers about 2 weeks ago. Now it super feels like it's Ryan Weathers. I think we can close that door. There's still some free agent starters available, though. We'll talk about the potential viability there. And the Cody Bellinger deal, by the way, the roster move still has not been made, which has some people's antennas going up. Oh, are they waiting around to maybe clear out an outfield spot? Are they trying to play around with the fringes of the 40-man? Do they have a second move in the chamber? I personally am going to lean no. I'm going to lean we're just waiting for Scott Boras and Cody to get through the snow, but it's at least a discussion point as we sit here on Monday, January 26th, a long ways in the past that this deal was actually made. But then unfortunately it's not final, so we don't really know where to go at this point forward. Plus the Yankees international crisis, or is it on purpose? I'm still not scared of trading Jasson Domínguez, but I'm a little scared of what they might trade him for and churn at the back end of the roster. Again, if you're waiting to announce Bellinger to make a big move, but you're still claiming Michael Siani on waivers and dumping Caleb Ort, then I'm not sure if there's a grand plan there, or if they just like roster fringes. Thomas Carannante, welcome to the show.
Here we go. I don't know, man. You think Boras is probably, the deal isn't official yet because Boras is looking for an extra $2.5 million for his pocket cash. I don't know. Can someone explain to me, anybody, the roster churn that comes with randomly claiming people and then dumping them? Why not just keep the roster spot open? I don't get it. Maybe at some point the Yankees thought Caleb Ort would be a good last option on the roster for bullpen fodder, and then they decided Michael Siani was better for outfield depth. I don't know. You just see so many teams do this where guys get claimed, waived, and they bounce around to 2 or 3 teams before the offseason even ends. I don't know. But yeah, I guess up top here, start with the MacKenzie Gore trade. I saw Yankees fans on social media enraged when this went down. Some, not all, some. And to those folks, I'm wondering, are you paying attention to anything that is happening? And I don't mean that condescendingly. I'm just genuinely asking because, yes, the Yankees were mentioned in MacKenzie Gore trade rumors earlier in the year, but if you followed them closely, they were not really mentioned as repeat destinations for them. They were merely mentioned as they were in talks with the Nationals. No report after that moved us in a positive direction to suggest that this would be going down.
It's
and
like
I understand
the Freddie Peralta rumors came out that said the Yankees had made no traction, and people were like, does that mean they're having some discussions? Not really. It kind of means there's no traction, and there wasn't, and they didn't get him.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. There was, and I understand, look, the Rangers came out of nowhere to make this deal. The Rangers were, I don't remember, I've read a pretty good amount this offseason. I never remember the Rangers being mentioned here. No. We were having talks about the Rangers just a month ago, about them potentially tearing down after the Marcus Semien trade, which went down, I think, late November, right before, a week or two before the winter meetings. But apparently they're all in if they're trading 5 prospects for 1 player. Again, something that I'm not necessarily against, but when you're looking at the cost of the starting pitching market, and this is where it takes you, you have to know the Yankees are not paying that price. And again, not being condescending, it's just you got to pay attention to the moves that they make over the last 7 or 8 years. Brian Cashman is not changing his philosophy now. And he's definitely not changing it for a rather underwhelming pitcher. Nothing against MacKenzie Gore. Again, he's been on a bad team for a while, so I think that there's room for him to grow, but some concerning metrics there, especially with I believe home runs allowed. And
horrible second half. Like by any metric, and by the end of the year, he looked like just again a classic Yankees trade target. Honestly, the strikeout numbers are high, but he's getting battered around. He's way too
hard contact, right?
Yeah, hard contact, huge. End of the year. I'm looking for August and September to make sure that 5.92 ERA in August, 6.75 in July, 3 starts in September with a 4.38 before he got shut down. So all-star first half, top draft pedigree, top prospect status. There's something there. You don't have to look too far to be like, mate, you know what? There could easily be another level to hit here. And I'm not saying like Gore, a 2025 All-Star, is a worse addition than Ryan Weathers, a guy who's made like 9 starts a year for the last 3 years and has never hit the heights Gore did. But given the price of both, if I'm overpaying for a trade target, I want it to be a bona fide number 2 or a 1A or at least a hard-throwing righty. Like, give me Freddie Peralta over Gore, obviously. Give me Edward Cabrera over Gore. Maybe not quite so obviously, but in my opinion, not that I was all in there either, but Gore is definitely the trade target they were connected to, who seemed to be the costliest, who made the least sense.
Yeah, and again, another lefty. They don't need another lefty. I think at that point it makes their left-handedness obsolete almost. It's supposed
you're trying to get a playoff series together. You're throwing Fried, Rodon, Cole, Gore, 3 similar lefties in a 4-game series.
Well, I guess Schlittler would be in there, and then you use Gore as a piggyback option. I don't know.
Hopefully, but then why are you trading 5 prospects for Gore?
Exactly. So it just comes down to, like, you got to just pay attention to the market and what's going on. And I know the answers aren't all right in front of you, but the Yankees telegraph exactly what they're going to do most of the time. And when you start to see, we talked about it for multiple episodes, the Shane Baz, the Mike Burrows trades, even the Edward Cabrera trades. It was like, at that point, you knew the Yankees were out on these types of candidates, especially pitchers with any sort of control. And then the fact that Freddie Peralta for 1 year went for the Mets number 3 and number 5 prospects. The Yankees just weren't doing that. The Yankees believe their starting rotation is strong, as has been relayed by Michael Kay, as has been relayed by Chris Kirschner, as has been relayed by Jack Curry. Like, how many more people do you need to tell you that the Yankees believe in the current roster and group that they have, especially the starting rotation, and they're only going to upgrade in any capacity if the right opportunity comes along? So MacKenzie Gore was always, to me, a tertiary option if the price was right at best, and not a fit whatsoever at worst. And turns out the previous pitching trades had set the market far too high. I don't know. As you guys know, I'm not a prospect hugger. I don't really care about those guys being dealt. I don't know on what world one player is worth 5 outside of Juan Soto, outside of Tarek Skubal, outside of any other superstar name who's entering a walk year and can't be signed to an extension, or someone you're getting under club control who's an all-star talent for 3 years or something like that. MacKenzie Gore does not have a long enough track record of success to suggest that he's a 5-for-1 player. And I think the Yankees obviously knew that. They did their due diligence by checking in to see what it would be. It ain't happening. As for the Rangers, they're in a different situation. They needed another starter. I believe they specifically needed a lefty too. They're doing some roster overhauls as well. So I don't have a grade on the trade. I'm just kind of glad the Yankees didn't do this because there was no reason to. And again, it's asset management. If they wanted 5 players, great. Trade those 5 players for something else that you need. See if those 5 players can be included in a Tarek Skubal deal. If the Tigers are even considering it, I don't think they are, but that's where the assets should go. But for now, I don't know what this holds for future Yankees moves. I don't.
Big ups to the Rangers, though. They try to get better every single year.
They really do.
Gore, not my preferred candidate for the New York Yankees in context, but the Rangers, there were some articles about Chris Young late last week that were basically detailing the way that he operates and how well he does in typically winning trades. And they note that the one he lost was Cole Reagans for Aroldis Chapman. But then again, they won the World Series with Aroldis Chapman, and Cole Reagans is a big loss. He's really emerged for the Royals, but now they have a similar hard-throwing lefty with a high ceiling in MacKenzie Gore. They give up some assets from the farm to get it done, but not assets they're going to miss immediately. Fiend could be something. Rosario, the second highest ranked prospect they gave up in the deal, has been rehabbing a mysterious injury for like a year and hasn't had surgery yet. That's a borderline distressed asset that they managed to include as the second piece in a MacKenzie Gore trade. Just because I don't want the Yankees doing this doesn't mean it isn't a good move for Texas. And if Gore gets right, they can now run out Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, and MacKenzie Gore in a 3-game set for a team that had serious, weird back-end rotation issues last year and hasn't had Jack Leiter click yet, and Kumar Rocker kind of a non-entity. The Marcus Semien, Corey Seager thing doesn't really make sense on the surface, but there were reports coming out, a long discussion of the Mets offseason this week that indicated that relationship between Seager and Semien was unsalvageable and toxic, and that, hey, maybe Corey Seager is the toxic asset, and I'm not in the locker room, can't comment on it, can only read what people write and tell me. But hey, I don't know if I would have broken up that middle infield duo in a vacuum, but we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a world where people interact, and those two people apparently couldn't interact anymore. And they chose the better player in Seager. I don't know what the disagreement was, but I know that Seager is a better player with less regression baked in, and Brandon Nimmo also a strong asset. So good for the Rangers. They always try to get better every single offseason, whether you like their moves or not. And I do for now.
Hey, I do.
Yeah, I do. Hey, guess what? I do. I think the moves are good. There are weirdly like not that many teams in the AL that I consider to be viable contenders. I guess that's what happens when like the Dodgers and Mets suck up all the talent and really, all absorb all the offseason space. We're talking about the Dodgers. We're talking about how can the Mets keep up, and then they do. They make 3 offseason altering moves in like 72 hours, and it is what it is. But that's how the Red Sox have had a weird offseason, like had a chance to be like terrifying and fire breathing and bring in Kyle Schwarber or re-sign Alex Bregman or trade for Ketel Marte or bring in Bo Bichette. And they did like, Ranger Suarez, a nice move. Sonny Gray, I don't like that much. Wilson Contreras, a nice move. They're better than they were last year, I guess, or maybe they held even with where they were last year. And even feeling that was underwhelming, they're still like a top 4 team in the American League because the American League sucks.
They got a tad interesting, I would say. I don't know. Again, nothing's been overly convinced. Like what the Mets are doing, I think is good. It's just, I don't know if it's going to work. It doesn't inspire me. Like if I'm a Mets fan, they're essentially tearing down the roster and bringing in other guys. And Bo Bichette is signed to a 1-year deal and couldn't answer a question about why he wanted to be in New York. So like, could it work? Yeah. I mean, it could be a short-term boon for the 2026 season, but I just don't know. I respect what they're doing. As for every other team, like Red Sox seem to be doing a lot of damage control because they either knew they were going to lose Bregman or now they're like, oh, we lost them, so now we have to do something. I don't know what that's going to be. But yeah, this is why the Yankees window is so important, because there is no clear-cut juggernaut. There's no Dodgers in their league. Yes, the Dodgers will be more than likely waiting in the World Series, if that's the case. But if you get there, all bets are off. Anything can happen. The Yankees instead have allowed the Blue Jays to become the AL juggernaut in this case. I think, again, jury's still out there. Blue Jays, again, have had one good year since their ALCS, back-to-back ALCS appearances 10 years ago. So am I sold on the Blue Jays being the gold standard in the American League at this point? No, they can prove that this year. You have to do it more than once, not saying win the World Series or you have to get to the World Series again, but you have to prove that you're a 95-ish win team and can do damage in the playoffs. And this is the first time they've proven that in 10 years. Outside of that, I'm looking at MacKenzie Gore's stats. Explain this to me. How do you have a 0.8 WAR in 2024? He made 32 starts, which is damn good. Damn good for a starter in this day and age. 3.9 ERA. How is that 0.8 WAR? How is he a 3 WAR in a season he had a 4.17 ERA and a 5-15 record? How is this calculated?
Yeah, it doesn't make it like
I just don't understand it. He was over 2 wins better year over year. 2024, 10-12, 3.9 ERA, a ghastly 1.42 whip, but the whip didn't improve that much. 2025, 3 WAR, 5-15 record, 4.17 ERA, 1.35 whip. The stats are all the same. They're literally exactly the same across the board with fewer hits allowed year over year. But same amount of walks, more home runs. So the stats, they just don't make sense to me.
I don't understand this one. He also has led the league in wild pitches 2 consecutive years. I don't think that would have changed.
God, that's a nightmare.
That would have sucked to deal with. But again, the Rangers have tried better fit there than here. And now you've got, no juggernauts. Say what you will about the Blue Jays. Very, very good team. I don't know what the future holds for them, but yeah, they have done the job. The Red Sox have not done the job, and they're still poised for success in a weak American League. Someone's going to win the Central. Who? I don't know. Last year, we all thought the Tigers were about to become a real team. Then they've spent the offseason fighting with Tarek Skubal and not making tangible improvements. The Seattle Mariners are still quite good. Are they going to get as far as they did last year, or was that the year? We will see. That's why it was important for Texas to make the improvements they did. The Houston Astros are obviously going to be better than they were last year, you'd think. But then again, maybe they won't be. Maybe the downturn is real. That would be great. That's why we're paying attention to the Yankees' stupid offseason and their decision to run it back, largely because, man, the window is open. I don't really believe in any of these teams. It's like watching the AFC playoffs this year, and you go through the whole season, and you're like, the Patriots have this cakewalk. This is ridiculous. Drake May is good, but did we really learn anything about the Patriots? And then you get to the playoffs, and you're like, oh, I still don't think they're that good, but they're the best team in the conference, except for maybe Jacksonville, who they never played. But you get to the playoffs and you're like, oh, wait, they're actually – but when do they play a real team? Oh, they don't, because they're actually better than all of their opponents. Like, that's what the Yankees could be this year.
The Yankees would like to get lucky. They'd like to have the playoff draw fall in their favor. And, sometimes it does and they fail, and other times it doesn't and they get killed. The only point that I've somewhat agreed with. Michael Kay was talking the other day on his radio show, and in a sense, I don't know if he was like blatantly defending whatever the front office has been doing or whatever their beliefs are this offseason, but he made a solid point. And he said, if Garrett Cole is pitching for the 2025 Yankees, don't you assume they win 2 extra games and they have 96 wins and they're the division winner and the Blue Jays are not? And they're not in this situation. And while I totally agree with that, there is no question the Yankees win at least 2 more games with Garrett Cole in the rotation. But the fact of the matter is that somebody else will be injured on this staff. Yeah. So let's say Max Fried misses 6 weeks next year. Then we're having the same conversation. Oh, well, what if Max Fried was healthy and didn't injure his oblique? Well, that didn't happen. So I don't know. In terms of like the complacency aspect of it, that is a little bit of that energy where it's like, well, if everything went to plan last year, kind of would have been good, right? Yeah, it would have been great, but it didn't, and it never does. So what's the option? We wait for these things to materialize with the perfect pieces in place, and if one of those pieces gets removed from the equation, we lose the division by 1 game, or we fall out of the wild card picture, or do we stack the deck and get 1 or 2 extra really good players in here to ensure ourselves against a catastrophic injury or whatever it is? And I understand they did that with Fried last year, but I don't think that was the plan. I think they thought Garrett Cole was going to be fine, and they said, oh, Max Fried coming in, we're going to have a juggernaut rotation, and then Garrett Cole was indeed not fine. So while I do understand, of course, I understand the argument. If Garrett Cole was healthy, this Yankees team is much better and is definitely better than the Blue Jays, but you can't operate like that. And that's the problem with the Yankees philosophy.
Yeah, that's why, again, all fans, we are all guilty of this. But we start talking about injured players on our roster and well, if only they were healthy, as if that doesn't happen to every team. Basically, every mid to good team that has a chance at a championship probably suffered an injury along the way that deleteriously affected their odds to win a title. That's how it goes. Like Celtics fans, and talking about Celtics Knicks is the cleanest example of this in the last couple of years. The Knicks beat the Celtics last year in a series where the Celtics blew 20-point leads at home in games 1 and 2. And the Knicks were up 9 with like 2:40 left in game 4, and Jason Tatum snapped his Achilles. And anyone who's ever watched the Knicks before knows that a 9-point lead with 2:40 left does not mean you won the game, but they certainly put themselves in position to go up 3-1 before Jason Tatum got hurt. And then the Celtics rallied to win game 5, and then the Knicks had the biggest blowout in their playoff history victoriously in game 6, and they won the series. And Celtics fans will look at that and say, oh, invalidate. We'll never know what would have happened if Jason Tatum hadn't gotten hurt. And that's why we can't talk about that as a full-strength battle of the two teams. In my opinion, it's as close as you're going to get to a full-strength battle between those two teams without, yes, you are correct, before the end of the series, a catastrophic injury happened. But the year before, I swear to you, the Knicks, I liked the Knicks team from a year before much more than I liked last year's Knicks team. And I swear they would have taken the Celtics down in the conference finals if they had had healthy Jalen Brunson, who fractured his hand in the final game against the Pacers, and healthy OG Anunoby, who tore his hamstring up in that series, and healthy Mitchell Robinson, who Joel Embiid injured, and healthy Bojan Bogdanovic, who hurt his foot. But I'll never know that because that's how it works, because you'll never know. I think the Knicks would have won that series, but I have the luxury of being able to say that because they didn't get to play him healthy. So I have no idea. Celtics fans think the Celtics could have come back if Jason Tatum was healthy, but we'll never know. So they're allowed to, they can say that with impunity. Michael Kay can say that about Garrett Cole because they didn't have him last year, and we'll never know, and we can't refute that. And if everything went perfectly that season and Garrett Cole stayed healthy, I agree with him. But you could say that about so many teams every single year, that if X team hadn't lost X player, they would have had 3 more wins. We wouldn't have been stuck with Marcus Stroman, and we wouldn't have had Carlos Carrasco.
Keep forgetting Marcus Stroman. Team.
It holds water to an extent, but like exactly what you're saying, the more bites at the apple you give yourself, the better chance you have of not having to sit in the end of the year and luxuriate in this look back about a season that never unfolded because of some perceived injury slight. Yeah, congrats. And now we do have the ability to say that kind of thing, and it can't be refuted because it didn't get played on planet Earth. Like, it's an impossible to refute argument that if everything broke the same way and we had Garrett Cole, then yes, I do think that team would have been better, would have been better positioned for a playoff run. But it broke. Garrett Cole broke, and we didn't have anybody to step in and replace his, immense potential and probability, win probability added or whatnot. And then Cam Schlittler showed up and finally righted the ship. If Cole's there, though, do they ever call up Cam Schlittler? I don't think they do.
Yeah, there's that too. So there's a lot of things. But I mean, and that could be the logic too, where they're like, oh, well, we discovered Cam Schlittler this year, so that's good for us. And it's like, it is. It's a very good thing for you, but he is 23, 24 years old. You have no idea if he can replicate that. And that can't be an equation for the duration of the 2026 season. I hope it is. I love Cam Schlittler, but what did they do the year before? They probably thought Jasson Domínguez was going to be a fixture on the 2024 roster. Then he gets injured at the end of the 2023 season, and then he's out for a year. Or there's so many other times where they bake in these performances that aren't there or end up not being there, and then they're like, oh, well, what could have been, or we hope this might happen, or we're relying on this bounce back, and it's just too much floating possibilities, and not enough. Here's what we know we're getting out of this group.
Yeah, and that brings us to the Cody Bellinger move, the roster move that has not yet occurred, but will. I mean, look, this is not a conspiracy. The Yankees have signed Cody Bellinger. Good for them. They got it done. But we've been waiting for, what was that, Wednesday? I mean, we are now 5 days in. We don't have the tweet. We don't have the roster move. How long do we have to wait? We had to wait so long for Paul Blackburn, I think it was, where like it was maybe 2.5 weeks after it was first reported before the Yankees like welcome back Paul tweet or whatever it was. And that it was such a long gap. You had people who aren't that tuned in with the Yankees sending it to me as if it had happened, being like, the fuck? We got Paul Blackburn? It's like, brother, we did this several weeks ago. I'm not saying we should have or shouldn't have, but this is old news. We're waiting on the Bellinger tweet. We're waiting on the barrage of videos and montages and edited clips. And I think it's probably nothing at all. I think the people who are Brian Windhorsting about what do they know are probably doing too much work here, especially because there isn't a great option to send Jasson Domínguez somewhere else or send Spencer Jones somewhere else to create a 40-man spot. It's also very easy to create a 40-man spot. There is so much chum at the bottom of this roster. They signed Michael Siani at the end of the week last week, which is another Windhorsty thing of like, oh, a defensive-minded center fielder. Are we sure that that isn't a replacement for Jasson Domínguez? We know Michael Siani can field. And yes, we sure do. We also know that Michael Siani had a 60 OPS plus last year, one of the worst hitters in baseball. And even in his breakout year with the Cardinals, he had an OPS in the 500s. Like, this is not a guy that you want on your major league team. They bring him in, get rid of Caleb Ort, who, I don't think Caleb Ort was going to be a bullpen savior, but I was also like, oh, we've brought in like 2 bullpen pieces this year. So maybe we have a fix in mind for Caleb Ort. We don't. He's already gone. They're trying to pass him through waivers. I don't think that's going to work. But they keep churning the bottom of this roster. They brought in Marco Luciano, who is a former top 100 prospect, like a former top 20 prospect with the Giants, who hits lefties in the minors. Maybe that's a guy who can get a bench spot. But those minor moves cued me into the bottom of the 40-man. We still have Javian Sandridge hanging out here, who we brought in last offseason from the Brewer system. He has reached he has yet to attain 1 full inning at the major league level for the New York Yankees. Made it through 2/3 of an inning last year with a 27 ERA and a 4.5 whip. I don't think we're going to be using him next year. I think you could sacrifice that 40-man spot if you wanted to. I'm also going to, this is the 38th podcast in a row where I'm going to say, hey, what's Braden Shoemake doing on the 40-man roster? As we're trying to figure out, like, how do we juggle all these pieces? Braden Shoemake, another first rounder out of Texas A&M in the 2019 draft, drafted by the Braves. It was supposed to be a fast riser, never hit at the minor league level. It has not hit at the major league level either. Last year hit 244 with a 680 OPS at AAA Scranton. His major league career, he's hit 118 in 68 at-bats. And this is a guy who is still on the 40-man roster instead of Caleb Ort, who's gone. So, look, the odds are that the Bellinger move is, okay, we give up. Braden Shoemake is gone. I don't know why he was still here. Or maybe it's Michael Siani. Maybe he never even gets to go to the facility. Maybe we never learn anything about him. But the conspiracy theorists, before it's actually announced, are definitely thinking to themselves, what can they do with Jasson Domínguez before the Bellinger move becomes finalized? What do they have up their sleeve? And I fail to see what they could have up their sleeve. And I'm not saying you got to sit on Domínguez forever. And Trent Grisham coming back has definitely led to a timeline where Jasson Domínguez maybe has to start at AAA. Sad, scary, because you have diminished his future in the Bronx for a 1-year solution in Grisham. But let's face facts. After last year, we don't 100% trust Domínguez. Domínguez is an imperfect 4th outfielder on this roster. I'm not saying you can't trade him. I am not banning the New York Yankees from trading Jasson Domínguez. I just don't see what the return is that's going to make us feel better about this team this year and beyond. And I just know I am scared that it is going to be some controllable reliever. And I'm looking at the Rockies transaction wire every single day to make sure that they don't send Jasson Domínguez to Coors Field while I sit here and try to have to do mental gymnastics to say, well, Victor Vodnik's fastball spin actually should play up outside the high altitude. Please shut me up if I ever do a podcast about how trading Domínguez for 6 years of a reliever with a 3.9 ERA was a good idea. I would much rather hang out with Jasson Domínguez in the Bronx for longer. I have no idea who is still on the board as a trade candidate who makes sense to deal him for. But until the Bellinger thing is official, you're going to have people doing the Windhorse fingers.
It's true. And I am looking at this roster. And the reason why this Domínguez thing is coming up, by the way, it's not just us speculating on what the roster move might be. Brian Hoke, in a recent article, was mentioning that when the Bellinger news becomes official, he didn't tell us anything new, right? There's going to be an outfield logjam. That's what's going to exist with this team. This is the problem. And he mentioned that Jasson Domínguez or Spencer Jones could conceivably be traded for a reliever because bullpen is the biggest need for the Yankees. So we went from 2 years ago, 2 off seasons ago, we're coming up on 2 years of trading Spencer Jones for Corbin Burns straight up to now potentially trading Spencer Jones for a controllable relief pitcher. And this is where you lose me. This is where I get lost by all things Yankees, because I don't understand how you let an asset fall apart in that manner over the course of 2 years. Had so much promise 2 years ago that he could have been dealt for a Cy Young candidate, and you decided to not do that because you believed in the prospect more than you did Corbin Burns elevating you to new World Series heights. But now there is we don't know if this is true from the front office's perspective, but the fact that Brian Hoke, a trusted Yankees insider, is even making a loose connection like this should have you a little bit concerned, because again, it's a mismanagement of assets. But I look at this Yankees roster and I am very confused. I see Bebos's name get mentioned in the chat a few times about him potentially being on the roster bubble. I fully agree with that. Mm-hmm. Another guy who was acquired before the 2024 season, who got his fair shake and just simply didn't deliver. I think he's valuable at AAA in terms of an emergency promotion because of his flexibility and the fact that he's is he a switch hitter or he's just left-handed?
Jasson?
No, Bebos.
Oh gosh. I think he's a switch hitter.
No, he bats lefty.
Oh, that's a bummer for me.
Which is in any other situation is valuable, but the Yankees have decided to just get more and more lefties no matter the situation. So it's not very helpful.
And he was the author of the single worst play of 2025 when Ronald Acuna Jr. gunned him out from second going to third, just walking towards third and then getting there being
not sliding.
What in the heck did I thought I gave up on but then he didn't. Oh, well. And walking back to the dugout. One of many failures on last year's roster.
Many failures. I blame the coaching staff for that. I don't know why a young player is even exhibiting that sort of energy, or why the third base coach isn't demanding more out of the player in that particular instance, but whatever. I go down the rest of this list. So here's my other question. 60-day IL designations. We're getting 2. Chase Hampton, likely, correct? Garrett Cole is the other one.
Yeah.
Garrett Cole is not coming back before June. He's getting 60-day IL'd. So maybe the Yankees, I don't know when that deadline is at, start of spring training, pitchers and catchers report. Mm-hmm. It could be relatively soon. They're obviously not waiting 2 weeks to report Cody Bellinger or to announce Cody Bellinger's roster move. But there's also that layer to it where the Yankees are going to have at least 2 people on the 60-day IL. And guess what? I wouldn't put it past them to put Carlos Rodon on the 60-day IL. I really wouldn't. I don't know how far along he is in his progressions, and remember, he's not getting a full spring training. So he's going to need to get a full spring training, which is 3 weeks of buildup, which is essentially, let's say he misses the first 3 weeks of the season because he's still recovering. He's going to need another 3 weeks just to get on track, and that puts you at around 42 days. You might as well just, and that's assuming the timeline goes perfectly. That's assuming you have a perfect 42 days of rehab, build up, whatever it is. That never happens with the Yankees. So Carlos Rodon could be a 60-day IL candidate when the year starts. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's possible. And then you look at the rest of these. I mean, you mentioned Sandridge, obviously. I don't understand. That's probably the best way I can put it. Are we looking at a catcher trade? Is JC Escara going somewhere soon? Yeah. Bebos, again, is that someone who's going to go somewhere? Braden Shoemake, why is he still here? Questions that we deserve to know. And then you have Marco Luciano and Michael Siani, as you talked about. Those are 2 valuable roster spots. I understand that those you have the former top 100, he might have been a former top 10 prospect.
He was a way bigger prospect than we're giving credit for too. But this is like the one minor league signing that I think we deserve to stop and just say like, hey, that is the kind of guy that you try to sneak through a whole offseason if you get your hands on him. So I hope the Yankees listen to us and at least let Marco Luciano get to spring training. I don't know why. Baseball Reference is doing this annoying thing where sometimes it decides to list the prospect rankings at the top of the sheet, and sometimes it decides to make them disappear forever. But I'm going to pull up my article about Luciano because I had it prior to 2020. He was like top 10, and I think he ended up being at like 13 the next year. He's a dude who lost a lot of his shine during COVID because he peaked at number 12 prior to the 2021 season. So the COVID year wonked it up a little bit because I think everybody was just like, this is an international dude. We haven't really seen him play, but we really believe in him. He just before COVID shut the world down, he was at 19, rose to 12 in the obscurity of that year, and then was sitting around, 20-something, 30-something, 60. He's been on the top 100 list 5 years in a row and ranked in the top 60 every time on Baseball America. But he hasn't had a good minor league performance since 2021, really full time. Last year, he was great against left-handed pitching at the AAA level in the Pacific Coast League where the air is thin. This is not me saying that Marco Luciano is someone you can believe in and you can trust me that the Yankees are going to unlock him. But it is saying that, hey, if you have some more 40-man moves to make, get rid of Javian Sandridge and Braden Shoemake and Michael Siani before you touch him and bring him to camp and see what he is. Get rid of Bivas before you touch him. I would much rather see what Luciano has to give us. That said, every time I have gone on a rant like this in the past, it's been about like Roansy Contreras, and then 3 days later they DFA him, or he signs with the big pharma Golden Eagles of Tokyo Yakuten, and I'm like, okay, fine, I guess. The big red chewing gum AstroTurf mega legends of the Korean Baseball Association. But hopefully they actually do. He's 24 and he has a tangible skill, and people really believed in him in the not so distant past. I would like to see him. Again, that said, we probably
I would like to see him too. It's not what I guess moral of the story. What we're saying here is that's not a bad 40-man spot to have occupied by somebody. So I'm down with it. Also, Duran, I see you saying in here that Rodam will be ready by May and he's not a 60-day candidate. I don't doubt that. Like I said, I think him being 60-day is relatively unlikely, but he just said the other day that the surgery was so bad he couldn't touch his head or button his shirt for 6 weeks. So I don't know. I know he's
it'd be a blow if we found out he was a 60-day guy. He's not supposed to be, but I can't rule it out.
I'm not ruling anything out when there's elbow surgery involved, and we just saw Carlos Rodon in 2023 have 2 major injury setbacks, one with a forearm, one with a back that kept him out for it kept him out for almost 2/3 of the season. So he's had a troubled past with injuries and rehabs and all that stuff. So I just don't know. I'm putting all the options out there for us to discuss and consider, because he even mentioned, he said they took a lot of bone chips out. So the throwing could be going well. Then there could be irritation. Then he has to get shut down. Then that takes him off course for 10 days. Then you're looking at 55 days for a recovery. And then you might as well 60-day IL him. I don't know. Either way, there are ways for the Yankees to maneuver this roster, but you do look at it right now and you say, I'm either looking at a bunch of guys who can be sent off and nothing will matter, or there are still a couple of, like, you can't have 2 lefty hitting catchers. I mean, you can't have a backup catcher that's a lefty. No, you can't have 2 lefty hitting catchers. That's what the Yankees have. And one can't be and they both can't be underwhelming hitters. So that's going to be another. Why did I think Austin Wells was a righty just now?
Why did I think Yorkie Bivas was a switch hitter? I mean,
I don't know.
I should be thinking more about the bottom of this.
Maybe we should be fired.
Yeah, I think we should be absolutely fired.
But as you can see, there are a lot of things, and you don't know also that there's Kervin Castro here.
Yeah,
this was a man that we acquired in a trade or signed from. No, I don't even know what we did. I don't know where he came from. Thought we traded for him. Don't know.
No, don't know.
Yeah, don't even know. So whatever the next move will be, but again, you're probably looking at Chase Hampton, Garrett Cole, 60-day IL designation, which should be soon, and then that will open up other opportunities for the Yankees. When? I don't know. Let me say.
I mean, look, if we have to come on here and talk about a Spencer Jones or Jasson Domínguez trade, that would be an exciting episode, but you just better get some form of approximate value for these people. I think there's another trade in the offing before the offseason ends, but it really might just be JC Escarra somewhere. And we, send the Uber driver story to another town and maybe even Cincinnati. It'd be Jose Trevino's caddy or something like that. But I think we're going to have an exchange. The Trevino trade, when it happened for the Yankees, was at the end of spring training, basically, or mid camp. So might have some mid camp trades too. The Yankees aren't done, but the question is to what extent? Like, can we hope for a Brendan Donovan and then have to settle for just getting rid of JC Escarra or getting some mid-range bullpen arm? Anthony Domínguez, I think, also happened between our last show and now, goes to Chicago, $10 million a year. Like, these are just deals that are coming off the board that the Yankees aren't going to make. The money's not there for the Yankees. So,
60-day IL designation, first days pitchers and catchers report to spring training. So let's say Carlos Rodon can't return until mid-May. They might as well 60-day IL him so he could return a week and a half later in late May. Yeah. I don't know. That's my thought. But there you go. First day of pitchers and catchers reporting, which I believe is February 15th.
We're close.
We're there. Might
3
as well
weeks.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Maybe Michael Siani survives the entire time. One last point before we go. Your favorite thing to talk about, Yankees and international free agency. I just want to address this because I'm going to get we get complaints whenever the Yankees do bad things, obviously. And sometimes it's completely valid, and sometimes I'm going to commiserate with people, and sometimes it's completely invalid, and I'm going to have to try to talk them off a ledge, and sometimes it's somewhere in between. This is one that is in between fully, but it's very confusing, and it gets more confounding by the day. But I mostly just want to hop on the show to remind everyone that if you really wanted to keep a hold of these international prospects who've been foretold for the next couple of years, if your happiness hinges on never seeing the Yankees renounce another one of these guys ever again, then I would just recommend staying off the internet because they're going to lose everyone for the next couple of years. That is a high-cost international free agent. They lost another one over the weekend. Myron De La Rosa goes to the Seattle Mariners after the Yankees renounce his rights. And did I get that name right? I really hope I did.
Doesn't sound familiar to me, but that's because I don't know.
Myron De La Rosa, previously linked to the Yankees in next year's class, pre-agreement with the Mariners for a $3.8 million signing bonus. That is $500,000 less than he was fated to go to the Yankees for. They also lost 2 other international signees for next year's class over the weekend, one of whom was making over $1 million at 1.3 with the Yankees. This is after losing Wandy Assagan to the Mets in this year's class, who also took less money to go to the Mets. And the less money thing is interesting because clearly the Yankees did not value Donnie Roland, the old international scouting director, and the work that he had done. Brian Cashman decided that they were going to let him go. And when the Assagan deal and other deals started dissolving, you immediately are like, oh my God, how could an international scouting director have been this important that these players are backing out of Yankees agreements just because he's gone? Pretty clearly at this point, the Yankees are dissolving these agreements because they do not agree with the money being allotted to these players. And the fact that they're getting less, not more on the open market makes you think, oh, wait, were the Yankees overpaying for their level of talent? Now, all we really have access to are the consensus prospect rankings, the MLB pipeline stuff. And Assagan was the number 2 bat in the country. I've seen him at 4 on other people's lists. So clearly people really do believe in him. And it makes it hard to say that everyone's assessment is wrong and the Yankees are wise to step aside here. That said, we're going to have to accept it because the Yankees have decided that this man's scouting eye and his decision to funnel these multi-million-dollar contracts at these teenage prospects 3 years ahead of their signing date was a bad idea. Whether it turns out to have been a bad idea or not is for history to decide. There's still time on the clock. We do not know. But if it breaks your heart watching player after player leave the Yankees pre-agreements in the dust and then sign for less money elsewhere, prepare to have your heart broken a couple more times because it's going to keep happening. The Yankees are not I really doubt they're losing these guys in a lawless panic and like forgetting to submit paperwork and being like, oh, Brian Cashman told me to keep that guy and I didn't. I forgot it. He's gone. It's not fun to watch the Yankees sacrifice this process, especially given that the draft is not a place where they are able to pick above the mid-20s usually, and they're at a deficit. And the Dodgers have made constant hay in the international market. But guess what? The Yankees haven't. They spent a ton of money on Jasson Domínguez, and he has remained one of their top prospects ever since. And he has had transcendent moments, but now we're talking about trade bait for him as well. Other than Jasson Domínguez, they have struck out on high-dollar player after high-dollar player after high-dollar player. Roderick Arias, who was supposedly the consensus #1 prospect in his class, is now out of the top 30. We wrote about that last week. Brando Maeda was the top name. The Yankees always spend the most money on either the top name or a top 3 name, and none of these people are making any strides when they get into the Yankee system. Could be a development issue, could be a prioritization issue, could be a little of both, could be bad luck. Either way, IFA process is something the Yankees could take advantage of because they are not restricted in the same way they are in the draft, but it's something they have not taken advantage of. So they're going to keep losing players from this previous failed regime. It's fair to call it a failed regime. Donnie Roland brings in bust after bust and spends millions of dollars on bust after bust. You can call it a failure. I will. I don't like seeing the Yankees lose players who, the assessments believe are top of the class. But I'm going to go ahead and sit back and not claim to know everything on this one, because I also certainly can't defend what Donnie Roland's international scouting department accomplished over the past half decade, full decade, 15 years. Wilkerman Garcia and all those guys from the 2014 class that were bust. So I can't sit here and say the Yankees are, what are they doing? I'm really not sure. And honestly, it's so odd to watch all these agreements dissolve that I can't help but think maybe they were doing some chicanery and MLB slapped their hand and Donnie Roland got fired because Brian Cashman is loyal to all these lieutenants except this one. So maybe he really hates watching all these busts come in, or maybe MLB was like, there's something fishy going on here. You guys got to dissolve all
ahead of it. Yeah.
It's highly possible. And maybe someday we'll find out about that. But for now, if this is just absolutely killing you, stay off the internet because they're going to lose more of these dudes.
Yeah. There's two things that need to happen. I mean, one of two things that might be the case. I mean, they're Yankees, whatever this Donnie Round might have been doing some stuff that the league flagged. And like you said, the Yankees had to get ahead of it. Or two, Hal Steinbrenner said, hey, what's going on with our international prospects? We seem to spend $10 million every year and it gets us nowhere. And then Brian Cashman was like, oh, let me check in on that. Yeah, they all suck. So we're not going to go with this guy anymore, Hal. That should save us a few bucks. Okay, great, Brian. Good talk. Offseason solved. There needs to be an international draft. I'm sorry. I understand drafts rub people the wrong way with, just the language associated with them. Teams just get rights to players randomly. And I would assume under the draft structure, there would be less money involved. So these 16, 17, 18-year-olds, even younger. Yankees apparently have a verbal agreement with a 13-year-old.
Yeah, the Yankees have dissolved every agreement except for this world-class child in the class of 2030. So good news, Yankee fans. I'm sure nothing will fall apart there. That's definitely going to materialize. You will certainly see that player in stripes in 2030.
But, I mean, outside of that, like, the international, even, like, even Domínguez, jury's still out, right? But if this was supposed to be, I know the comparisons were unfair, right? It was Mike Trout, Mickey Mantle right off the bat. And at that point, you're just like, you've lost me. We're not comparing anybody to those two players until they step foot on a major league field. But even Jasson Domínguez's minor league stats, like, not very impressive. 353 career games, 274 average, 816 OPS, struck out 384 times, which is a ton. This is essentially 2.5 full seasons. Can I do math right? 162 plus 162 is no, it's 2.25 seasons. And by that logic, he barely averaged 20 homers a season, which was, again, his power was a massive calling card. His 5 tools were a massive calling card. I don't see 5 tools described in this profile from his minor league performance during his age 18 to 21 season. So the failures and he was supposed to be the crown jewel of everything that had transpired over that course of international free agency, right? And again, we've talked about the past successes. You have Luis Severino, you have Gary Sanchez, but those even were flashes in the pans at the major league level that could not sustain any sort of consistency. And then with the rest of these guys that Adam just mentioned, they're topping out at high A. They can't get past high A. So how good are these players on the international market? Or is it a combination of things? Are the Yankees identifying the correct talent, but the minor league system can't take them far because obviously we know of their developmental woes on that front? Is it both? They're targeting the wrong talent and there are developmental problems in the Yankee system. Or are they just bad at all of this? I just don't know. So you look at how it's all gone down for the Yankees, and it's millions upon millions of dollars that has been wasted that could have been earmarked. Because what is this earmarked under? This doesn't count towards your payroll, does it? This doesn't count toward the CBT in any capacity.
No, it's just your international money, and it's capped, and you lose some of it when you sign top tier. For like Max Fried cost them international money last year.
Then I would just keep signing Max Frieds and lose all the international money because the Yankees have not benefited from the international market in I don't know how long in terms of it being absolutely transformative. And I understand you're not going to hit on those moves all the time, but again, there hasn't been one. And you can't tell me that Gary Sanchez hitting a bunch of home runs and Luis Severino being a Cy Young candidate for a year and a half is sufficient enough, because it's not. Because there are other teams that have gone out in international free agency and have found cornerstone players, and the Yankees, they might even come close to that. So whatever they're doing now, whatever they have to do to tear it down, I'm for it because it hasn't been working. It seems to be a giant waste of money. And there also seems to be a big change coming in the next CBA, whether it's going to be a draft, whether it's going to be more aggressive cap spending, whether it's going to count towards the CBT or not, whether there are going to be penalties for doing X, Y, or Z. I don't think it could be the Wild West like it is anymore, but just merely capped international funds. So we'll wait and see what happens. But couldn't have been a better time for the Yankees to try and switch this. I don't care about that guy going to the Mets. Already forgot his name. Don't care about this guy going to the Mariners. Everybody enjoy, because everybody the Yankees have scouted in the international market has not been good. So if these guys pan out, then we'll just know it's purely bad luck or a bigger indictment on the Yankees player development system.
Yeah, it will be interesting to follow. One of my least favorites. It'll be interesting to see. But look, I hate to do it to him, but here's the Roderick Arias class from 2022. Because the biggest thing right now is that, like, we don't know who appraises who, how, but Wandy Ossigan is the consensus number 2 or number 4 or a top 5 prospect in the whole system. And so you look at that and you say, oh my God, they renounced him and they gave him to the Mets. They said they wouldn't, but they did. What the hell's going on? It doesn't look good, but here's the Roderick Arias class. MLB pipeline. Arias was number 1 in the class. Numero uno. The Yankees had the consensus top prospect. He's been an utter failure. Below him, Christian Vaquero, Nationals, Cuban outfielder, non-entity. Ricardo Cabrera, shortstop, Reds, non-entity. William Bergoya, shortstop, Phillies, non-entity. Oscar Colas, Cuba, White Sox, a huge bust. He came to the major league. Anthony Gutierrez, Rangers. Samuel Munoz, Dodgers. You have to get to 8. Lazaro Montes of the Mariners, that's a prospect. Ryan Reckley, Bahamian shortstop, Giants. Diego Benitez, Braves. Tony Blanco Jr., massive power for the Pirates. I'm scrolling this monster list of international signees. I'm genuinely waiting for a difference-making prospect. I'm at 25. I'm at 30. I'm at 35. 41. Michael Arroyo of the Seattle Mariners got a $1.3 million bonus. He's a top prospect. He had 17 homers with an 834 OPS with the Arkansas Travelers, topping out at AA last year. But he's a real guy. The most real guy in there. Guess what? The Mariners got the 2 best players in this international class. They were ranked 8th and 41st before it started. Good scouting trumps whatever the Yankees are doing.
Whatever they're doing, we're still wondering. And again, another comment here. Arias is another example of Cashman prospect hugging. A lot of teams wanted him and he kept him, and now he's burning out. This is also the problem top down with the Yankees. They will hang on to these assets, not trade them at peak value, not get major league talent in return for them, and then do nothing. Essentially, it's just the do nothing administration. You sit there, you wait for things to materialize. They don't. You shrug your shoulders. Everything goes to shit. Then you restart the process again in a year or two. So I fully agree with that. The Yankees have had the prime example here, and this has not actually. Oswald Peraza was probably an international prospect, was he?
Yeah. I wonder how much money he made. Let me find him.
Well, the Yankees had Anthony Volpe and Oswald Peraza and Oswaldo Cabrera in the system at the exact same time, and they knew this the entire time they were going with Anthony Volpe. There was never a question, especially because when you saw how the whole thing went down, Peraza got playoff reps, got run in September of 2022, and then was had the rug unceremoniously ripped out underneath him in favor of Anthony Volpe. And the Yankees still would not trade Peraza. They wouldn't trade him that year prior when they didn't really need him, and he came up as I don't even know, expanded roster insurance down the stretch and in later in the season, and ended up starting a game during the ALCS because they needed help at shortstop. Like that's another example. Like you had two shortstops. They were highly regarded. Were either of them good? Turns out they weren't, but they were highly regarded. Other teams wanted them. You refused to trade either of them, and now you're stuck with both of them. Ended up trading Peraza for peanuts to the Angels, and now you're stuck with Anthony Volpe for however long. I don't know what they could have gotten for either of those guys, but I can assure you it would have been something that could have helped them during a playoff run, or at least for 2023 and or 2024 when they missed the playoffs and then had Juan Soto and came within striking distance of winning the World Series hadn't they shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, Oswald Peraza, not a top 10 prospect in the 2016-17 international class either. You got to play the game, but clearly
how much money though?
He wasn't. I can only find a top 10 list.
Oh.
Unfortunately.
All right.
But yeah, not one of those absolute top tier guys.
But how about that? He wasn't a highly regarded prospect. They found somebody who actually ended up performing well in the minor leagues, and they still did nothing with him. Nothing. It's insane. I don't know what they're doing to analyze their assets, or I just don't know. It's crazy. Every time
even worse when they traded Peraza to the Angels, they received $73,766 in international bonus pool money. What is that money going towards? You forwent your entire bonus pool. You didn't sign any international prospects. Nope. You traded Oswald Peraza for money you can't use because you flopped. What are you doing? Well, thank you for joining the show. As always, we appreciate everybody popping in here. We don't want to end the show with 20 minutes of screaming. We really don't.
Hey.
Our listeners are telling us, don't do that. We don't like that. Sorry. We're not going to give you what you want. If there's one thing you should have learned by now. No. Look, I hope we get some legit trade rumors in the next couple of weeks. I hope we get some announcements. I hope we get more than just 40-man roster churn. I hope we can answer some real questions instead of what is going on in the international market. Because right now it's gross. It's not fun. It does feel like they're kicking that process into a garbage can. And maybe they are. Maybe they have a better plan. But we won't know until 2029. We appreciate everybody joining us anyway. It's been a very strange Yankees offseason. And this is where we've been left. I am Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. Thomas Carannante. Where can the people find you?
At Tommy's_takes. You can find the both of us at the official Yanks Go Yard account. That's at Yanks Go Yard FS. Appreciate you guys tuning in and contributing in the chat as well. As always, thank you. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And lastly, head on over to yanksgoyard.com. That's where all the content is. Plenty of stuff we are not discussing on this podcast. We got a team of writers informing you of everything Yankees, and we're enjoying doing it. 3 weeks till pitchers and catchers report to spring training. We'll be back here on Thursday. Hopefully something happens. If not, we'll figure out something to talk about. We just thought we would do 30 minutes today. We did an hour. Never ends. But thank you guys again. We'll chat soon. Have yourselves a good week.
And I'll leave you with a comment that a Boston fan left me yesterday, a very existential comment after I complained about Boston sports and the fact that the Patriots are back in the Super Bowl and nothing bad ever happens to these people. General Grant W., Ulysses Grant Williams, is this person is a Celtics fan. Have you considered that we're better than you and deserve it more, and that's why it comes to us? Have you tried not personally sucking ass? So I will take that mantra to heart. I will try harder to not personally suck ass. And it really is as good of a theory as any as to why the Yankees and New York sports are in a cursed hole. Boston fans had a period from the 86 Celtics to the 2001 Patriots where they didn't win jack, and they went to the 86 Celtics were before the 86 World Series, so that was horrible. They lost the 96 Super Bowl. I think the Bruins were in the Cup Finals and lost or whatever. It's a lot like what we're going through right now between the Giants in February 2012 and right now we have in New York with double the sports. We have 2 World Series losses. The Yankees and Mets each have a World Series loss. We have a Stanley Cup Finals loss. We have a Liberty Championship, thank God, and NYCFC, if that is your thing, has also won a championship. But in the 4 major sports with 2 teams in each sport, we just got a couple of finals losses, and that is it. So maybe someday we'll break out of this. But if everyone listening to this show and watching this show can try personally to suck less ass, and we might finally be able to get over the hump. And we'll see you on Thursday. Keep me posted. Let me know how you are working towards that collective goal. Come in the comment section. Let us know. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Keep us posted. You can find us on Twitter. Please do, because that's where the Boston fans have found me. Until next week, take care, everybody.